Yes, nice to have you here. So Sassaki is the co-founder and the CEO of Geekie. Geekie is a company that was founded 10 years ago. It's its 10th anniversary this year, and it was the first platform of education that was based in data in Brazil. So Claudio Sassaki has been helping to improve our Brazilian education, level of our Brazilian education. And Geekie was born out of this insight that if not two people are the same, how can we be teaching everyone the same way, right, Sassaki? So he's he's a master in education from Stanford, and he was with Howard in 2017 in Harvard in a course called the Project Zero Classroom. So Sassaki, thank you so much for being here with us. And I know you have a question for Mr. Gardner.
Well, yeah, first of all, thank you, Carla. And I just wanted to thank Howard. I mean, he's very famous for his books, of course, as a lecturer, but what not everybody knows is the impact he has had in technology, actually in education throughout the globe. He has impacted millions of people. So Howard, thank you very much. And so as a parent as well, the question I have for you is, as a result of the global pandemic, nearly pretty much every school have had to adapt to either distance learning and or hybrid learning models, right? And so in this context, how can technology, either through platforms or content, but how can technology enhance the development of the 5 minds for the future? And is there any best practice you have seen teachers use that you could share with us? And I guess, and finally, any advice for us parents, who have our kids now at home? What could we do? Any advice for us?
Okay, well, thank you for that question. If you have a few hours, I'll try to answer it. Let me say I have 4 children and 5 grandchildren, and my wife and I have been teaching our grandchildren via Zoom and Facebook. And we've been teaching, my wife teaches reading, I teach writing, and we play music with our grandchildren, and my wife teaches art. So we've had to face these things firsthand. And of course, if you're fortunate, as most of us on this broadcast have access to technology, it's much, much easier than if you don't have technology. And it's even better when the technology works well, as it has for the most part. I think that you can do a great deal with technology in education if you have students or learners who already have some idea of the educational process and have some idea of how to relate to other people, which means it's most difficult for young children because so much of the human being is designed for face-to-face, hands-on, hugging, contact, putting your hand on the shoulder, separating kids or fighting if necessary. And it's been most painful for those children to be deprived of human intercourse, human relationships. On the other side of the coin, when it comes to college students and graduate students who already have done a lot of learning in person and by conventional ways, it's much easier now to use technology. And in fact, I don't recognize faces. So when I have students and their names are there, that's a big advantage for me. Of course, it's easier to deal in Zoom with 20 students than with 2,000 students. When you're dealing with 2,000 students, it almost has to be a lecture plus people who are hired to deal with smaller groups of people. But to get to the core of your question and where your question intersects with my work on multiple intelligences has always promoted 2 things, individuation and pluralization. Individuation means know as much about every learner as possible and teach every learner in a way that he or she can learn the best. Now, if you're wealthy enough to hire a tutor, individuation takes care of itself. But of course, most people cannot hire a tutor for every subject, but technology, if properly constructed and used, can make it possible to teach geometry in 15 different ways, or playing a piano in 15 different ways, or understanding history in 15 different ways. And it can individualize, because some people learn better through spatial configuration, some people learn better through artistic configurations, some people learn better through reading text, some learn better through conversation, and so on. So that's individuation. What was once possible only for people with tutors is now possible for anybody who has access to technology. Pluralization could always have been done, all the way back to ancient times. Pluralization means when you want to teach something important, teach it in more than one way. If you want to teach people what democracy is, don't just give them a definition. Expose them via their different intelligences: interpersonal intelligence, personal intelligence, linguistic intelligence, logical intelligence. If you want to teach them Darwin's theory. In fact, I wrote a book where I talked about 6 different ways you could teach the theory of evolution, developing each of the different intelligences. And that has to do not with the program for analyzing the learner, but rather with the mental program of the educational curriculum maker, who says, I want to teach this. What are the many ways I can teach this? And then 2 wonderful things happen. First of all, you reach more people, because some people learn better from language, some learn better from metaphors, some learn better from pictures, some learn better from movies. Second, and this has not been widely understood, when you can think about something in more than one way, you can understand it much better. And the worst thing is to have a teacher who thinks that he or she understands something, but can only teach it in one way. Because if a person can only teach it in one way, they don't really understand. And let me close the circle by coming back to synthesizing. When Howard Gardner studied his own synthesizing mind, he was amazed, because I discovered that a lot of my synthesizing occurs through music or through the naturalist entire intelligence. I would never have thought about this until I examined my own mind and brain. So that's a long answer, but as I said, if you had a few hours, I could go into more detail. But it's very good to see you in long distance. And maybe once again, we can take a picture in person when we're in the same geography. It's not the same thing.
Would love to.
Do it long distance.
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you very much, Howard.
Thank you.